That's a source of power. Are you willing to give up power and trust that power is going to come back to you?
Hi, this is Brad Henry. On the podcast, we have stories about the underdog. I've had a lot of victory, but more tragedy in my life has made me very compassionate and perceptive on those who struggle, but those who are not willing to give up. And these stories will hopefully inspire you to become more and be more in life, to give you hope, to know that victory can be right around the corner. And hopefully today's story will be that one to put you in a great mindset to know that everything in life is attainable with persistence and hope. So thank you for listening today, and I think you will really enjoy our channel.
Hey, we finally made it.
How are you?
Good. How about you?
Good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Yeah, good. Welcome to Brad Henry's podcast. I have today with me a friend I've known 49 years. His name's Dennis Alimena, and he has some great parts of wisdom to impart to us today. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him. And welcome, Danny, to the show.
Hey, glad to be here and good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to believe 49 years.
Yeah, and it seems like it was just yesterday.
It could have only been 2 years of that fishing trip to Canada. Huh.
That's right. That's right. And over the years, I've been curious about the brain and how the brain works. And they say that stories form in the right side of our brain, and the right side of our brain is timeless. There's no time going on there. And as a
Huh.
result, that's what makes us feel like it was just yesterday. You
Oh,
know,
really?
yeah, yeah. Because,
Huh.
yeah, there's no time on the right side of the brain. The left side of the brain is the one that organizes things and creates that timeline for us. So, interesting dynamic. I was always curious about that. When I saw that, I said, that's why it happens. When you meet somebody you haven't seen for a long time,
Yeah.
it's just like time just melts away.
Well, you and I met at Grove City in 75, 76.
Yeah,
And then you were captain of the football and baseball team?
that's correct. Yeah.
At what position in football?
Cornerback on defense.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No
So I
problem with
was
concussions?
I did have a couple concussions, and thank the good Lord that I haven't, at age 70, I haven't felt any, memory loss or things like that. I mean, there's natural cognitive decay. I'm not, I'm not as sharp as I'd like to be. I forget some things, but that's part of the natural aging process. So, hopefully, yeah, no CTE or some of those terrible things that some football players have to deal with.
Now, after Grove City, where did you go to college? Or where did you go get your master's?
Yeah, well, after college, I went and I taught and I coached football, basketball, and baseball for 3 years. And then I wanted to,
Where
at
at?
one I was at Southside Beaver High School in
Oh,
Western Pennsylvania, and
yeah.
at Center High School for a year as well. Yeah, so I enjoyed that, and I thought I wanted to be a Division I football coach. So I went to California University of Pennsylvania and coached full time there, and got my master's in counseling psychology.
So
But that was
what
yeah.
led you on this long road to India and leadership?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've always been curious about what makes people tick. So I think that's what initially got me into sports because, what makes an athlete tick, what makes them perform well at one time and not so well another. So I think that's what got me into counseling psychology, sort of understanding the individual. So I became a counselor at a high school out in the eastern part of Pennsylvania. So at the end of my master's, which was 1981, jobs were not plentiful in Western Pennsylvania at the time, and there were more opportunity out in the eastern part of the state. And I had a friend out there that we got together and we wanted to start a business. That it was hard to get money from banks
Yeah.
at that time. Interest rates were 17%, and
Oh,
we would have taken it if a bank would have
yeah,
given it to
yeah.
us. But so that led me to look for a job, in the teaching profession. And I worked at a high school called North Penn High School, a very big high school out in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. And then I got a counseling job at Perkiomen Valley High School. And so I got to pursue that counseling psychology background. And I enjoyed working with kids there and did that for 5 years. And I found a PhD program on leadership down at Temple University. And so I started
Oh,
going to school there at night and eventually got my PhD and, and
now when you
study.
say counseling,
Yeah.
is it problem kids? Is it what? Who comes to see
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, that's what I initially was interested in. I worked at George Junior Republic up in
Oh,
Grove
yeah.
City, in the summers, and to me that was fascinating. And my master's approached counseling psychology from various perspectives, and we were challenged to put together our own type of counseling psychology program that made sense for us, which was really fun and cool. So. But when I got into the PhD program, that was really a study of groups and how groups form. So I started to become curious about, oh, that's interesting. How do groups take place and how does leadership evolve, out of groups and organizations and communities and states and countries, So um, it's been a fascinating field, and so my interest has sort of gone, from the individual to groups, and that led me into organizational psychology,
Huh.
and that's where I spend a lot of my time now working with organizations on organizational issues, which can be culture shaping, leadership development, and that type of thing. So,
Now working with one person one on one is one thing.
hmm
Working
yeah.
in an organization is a whole different animal, right?
Oh, it is. It is, and it's fascinating because all the forces that are at work that influence how we behave. I was reading The Psychology of Money recently, and it said, if you were born in 1960, you grew up and you were exposed to a high inflation. I mean, you experienced it as a late teen, early 20s,
Yeah.
and it influenced your work and how you did things. If you were born in 1990, inflation was flat all the way across your, late teens, early 20s. There was the economy was going well, and so you just grow up differently and you think differently about money. And so I think that's fascinating to see how the economic forces shape who we are because of just the time we were born. So that's fascinating to me. And I think there's, in organizational life, there's all kinds of forces that influence how we behave. And that's what social psychology essentially
Before
is.
I
And
ask you about the venture you're on now, who's made the biggest impact in your life?
Well, I go back to Grove City, and as far as human beings, it's a couple of teachers that were just at the right place at the right time for me. There was a baseball coach, R. Jack Beringer, who uh, was challenging us all the time on intellectual things.
Wow.
And then I had a great history professor, Dr. Barbara Aiken, who was fantastic. And she just encouraged me, and I didn't do well on her tests. She was a tough professor to get a good grade from. But she made it fun and it was interactive and she
It
encouraged
created
me.
the spark.
She did, and I to this day I still love history and I read history, all the time and she asked me to go into history and be a historian, and I thought at the time with my immature mind I said, well, what can you do with that,
Huh.
But as time went on, I got to see like in the 1960s it was the historians that came in and educated the politicians and the lawyers, uh, as to what had happened up until now, so that they could rewrite laws and statutes and everything that made more sense. So it was the historians that educated the politicians, and
Interesting.
yeah, and then the light bulb went on. Oh, I see what she was saying. Yeah, so um, yeah, she
I
was
don't
a
know
great
how
teacher.
much you can talk about it for confidentiality reasons, but tell me about this new project in India. Now, that
Yeah.
is a long flight to get there, I'm sure.
Yes, yes, yeah. I've been to India a couple of times. It's a fascinating country. It's the largest democracy in the world, the largest populated country in the world,
Really?
1.4 billion people.
Oh,
Last year, they overtook China as the most populous country on
no
the planet.
kidding.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating place. We're working with a professional services firm there, and they have great ambitions to grow from their 15,000 employees now to 100,000 employees in 10 years. And they can do it. I mean, it's been done over there, and they have the population, and the economy is going well.
Yeah.
So it can certainly happen. My partner and I, in my business mindset for success, we started this because we worked together for about 15 years in a boutique culture shaping firm, and we started our own business in 2020. And we had worked with the CEO and his organization earlier, and he wanted to do something in addition to the work that we had done before, and so he invited us over to put some proposals in, and we ended up going there and staying for a month, and then going back
A
a few
month.
months later for a couple more weeks. Yeah, and so it was fascinating. I mean, the country is doing much better than it was 10 years ago, and but yet there's still a lot of challenges in that country, and so it certainly made me appreciate the things we have here. I think a lot of Americans don't appreciate what we have, but when you go to another country and you see the challenges they have, you come over here and you go, yeah, we've got it pretty good here. So
So, what would a day look like there? I mean, it seems so hard to wrap my mind around that many people and then
yeah.
breaking it down into smaller and smaller groups. You got to have department heads or you got to have a lot of communication going on.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We have two political parties here in India. They have 15 political parties,
Oh,
and political parties coming and going, all the time, I would guess. So it's really interesting. So as a leader in that country, you've got to figure out, well, how do we get uh, a coalition of all these political parties coming together so we can govern successfully?
so there, you were talking about things that you do with groups
Yeah.
to interact. What does something like that look like? Would be here and back there in India.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So there was a social psychologist, Kurt Lewin, that I studied when I was in my graduate work, uh, and he said, when we're young, our thinking is we're like a flowing river. We just sort of move and flow easily, and he says, but as we get older, our thinking has a tendency to freeze. and then we get sort of locked into a certain way of doing things, a certain way of thinking about things. And so his challenge was to unfreeze our thinking and then refreeze it and unfreeze it and refreeze it, being, creating flexibility in how we see things and how we experience things. So we use that when we go out and work with a client, because we know that as they've been in a business for a long time, their thinking has a tendency to freeze. And so we do simple exercises that will allow them to sort of stand back and take a look and really think about how they do things. And that allows for this unfreezing to take
Such
place.
as, what would one thing look like? What would a question be, or an icebreaker?
Yeah, sure, sure. Well, one exercise we have, we call it the power game now. It's you have small teams of five or six on a team. They're at a table. We give them envelopes that have these geometric figures inside the envelopes. They have to open up their envelopes, empty them out, and then their job, without talking, they have to put a square together in front of each person. And it has to be the same size square in front of each person. So they have to figure out how to put these geometric pieces, together to win this game. So it's a simple game. It has some rules to it. Uh, People, have fun with it, and that's the idea, is to have fun, because humor is a great thing to release tension,
Yeah.
in a work environment or in a relationship. So, so afterward, they'll it takes them 15 to 20 minutes. Sometimes there's a table that's not, can't get the solution. We ask them if they want some coaching, and
So is it the table that puts these shapes together, or each
yeah,
person at the table?
yeah, each person at the table in groups of five or six
Yeah.
are, they have all the resources there. They don't have to go anywhere else to get the resources. And all kinds of interesting things happen, Brad. Like someone will forget to empty out all the contents of their envelope, so they'll be sitting there wondering why they can't, get the solution. And all of a sudden, you know, I'll, as a facilitator, I'll say, "Well, you might want to check your envelopes," and they check the envelopes, and there, sure enough, there's a piece in there that's, someone didn't get out. And then we talk about that, and we debrief it, and we say, "Hey, how was the game like, working in this organization? You know,
Huh.
do some people hold back resources? Do
Wow.
are we playing for the win that's just in front of us, or are we playing for a bigger win? Or are we making sure that everybody is in the game and is getting their squares together? Because sometimes I could have a square together in front of me, but yet it's not, I'm holding a piece that somebody else needs over here. I need to give them a piece, and somebody needs to give me a piece to get my square back together again. So it's a real interesting game that's fun, but tees up some important conversations, like how big a win are we playing for?
There's different levels of administration, managers and vice presidents and whatever. Do
Hmm.
you find the culture, is it the, the CEO that determines if I want to hold on to my piece so I can get ahead, and I'm not going to give it to anyone else because I want to get ahead? Where does that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, this is, and we always have, everybody has a journal in these sessions, and we give them time to think about what just happened and how are they feeling and what does this mean, for them as an individual, and what are they willing to do with this new awareness. Like maybe I was just protecting my own square. I wasn't willing to share pieces of my square with anyone else on the team. And how do I do that in at work? And am I holding back resources? And it doesn't matter whether it's the CEO or a member of his or her team. Uh, this game is going on, in lots of organizations, and so it used to be called the Broken Squares game, and they used it at Disney, and we used it, for years, and it was in lots of curriculums, and
Huh.
business curriculums. We tweaked it a bit, and we call it the power game because it's about giving away power. It's about, when you have a piece that somebody else needs, that's a source of power. Are you willing to give up power and trust that power is going to come back to you? And that's the interesting dynamic that we introduce through this activity and then lots of discussion with the team. And we try to build trust in this environment. As facilitators, that's our job, to try to create trust. We interview each individual. We find out what the common themes are, and those are the themes that we bring up and talk about in these couple days that we spend together. And it takes a couple days of commitment to say, okay, we're gonna work on this individually as well as a team, and then you can get great breakthroughs, and
What if
that's what
somebody
makes it
holds
fun.
on to their square and you get bit once and you get bit twice by the same person? Uh, are you
Yeah.
willing to give them another square?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's another concept we talk about, which is called assuming positive intent. So, assuming positive intent means, if you do something that looks like you're trying to take something from me, I'm going to assume positive intent that you did what made sense to you. I may not agree with what you did, but I'm going to
Huh,
give you the benefit of the doubt. Okay,
gotcha.
assume positive intent. Now, that's different than if you've done something, uh, and I know that, then that's just, then you have to beware of that person because you've had experience with them. But many times we don't have experience with someone and they do something, and then we automatically ascribe a negative intent to it. Now, what that does is it creates anger and resentment in us. And then our thinking is not as clear as it needs to be to make good decisions. So when we assume positive intent, I always tell people, hey, this is a gift, but it's a gift for you. It's not a gift for them. It's a gift for you because you get to keep your head in a clear space where you can make
Uh,
better decisions and you
yeah,
don't get upset and in that negative loop, you know.
toxic. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
right.
What's the next step with India? They're
Well,
helping them grow their company.
I mean, they're working hard. It's a professional services firm, and they're leaning into this growth model, and they're growing. And it's a dynamic place, very exciting. So, what we're doing is we have a 2-year retainer with them to uh, have phone calls with them. We trained facilitators to do what we did when we were over there. So, we have calls with them. We have culture ambassadors who understand the culture they're trying to create there. So we'll have monthly calls with them. So, we're staying in touch, and, but, think of it as a positive virus. Culture is a positive virus that you want everybody to catch.
Mhm.
So, and that's assuming positive intent. It's being present when there's a meeting, instead of being on your phone and on your computer and really not being present at all. So some of those simple things that culture can represent can lead to greater productivity just because people are brilliant. And if you give them a
Sounds like
chance to
this
be.
would be a great marriage retreat.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, hey, well, these principles, they are a portable feast, so you can take them home, and they work at home as well. Absolutely.
Wow. Hey, we talked a little bit, switching the subject, about this NIL.
Oh yeah.
Since we're both sports minded and
Yeah.
played athletics, what What do you see with that happening?
Yeah. Well, I think NIL, and for listeners that aren't familiar with it, it's these images and likenesses of these athletes. Uh, Up until now, the NCAA and colleges just benefited from that, and any money that came in, went to the universities and all that, and that got challenged in the courts, and now, uh, you know, college kids, athletes can get these NIL contracts that are in some cases worth millions of dollars. So I think NIL is a paradox because
Is what?
it's a paradox. It's difficult. There's truth on both ends of it. Should
Yeah,
we have NIL? And the courts have said yes. And so is it good? Is it bad? You can see where it can be good. You can see where it can be bad. I think a perfect formula for ruining a kid's life is give an 18-year-old $1 million and say, here, here you go. Uh, their brains aren't formed all the way yet. There might be a few that handle that in an intelligent way and smart way, but most kids are going to do what some of these professional athletes do, and they get an entourage around them and pay everybody money, and they blow through $100 million faster than anyone can believe. So, it's a challenge for college sports. And one of my heroes in coaching was Coach John R. Wooden, UCLA. He
yeah.
won 10 NCAA championships, seven in a row at one time.
Oh,
He's considered the greatest coach of all time. He quit in 1975. And the reason why he quit, he said at the time, was he didn't like the direction the NCAA was going in
huh.
1975. So you can imagine what coach must be thinking, rolling over in his grave right now because of what's going on in college sports. But it's every Division I program now has an NIL consultant on their staff because most coaches that they don't know what this
Right,
stuff is and how to,
right.
it's marketing, it's sales.
Do you think there's animosity between players now getting more money than others, that now there is money involved?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's got to create some interesting dynamics, inside people's heads. I've heard stories where people are getting $1 million NIL contracts in high school, and
Oh,
they go to play, and they end up not playing a down in the college that they applied to, and yet they're making all this money and becoming an influencer. It's really a fascinating
so
time.
they're actually getting money in high school?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because again, the same thing in high schools is if your likeness is being used in some way, shape, or form, you're allowed to benefit from that. So now, yeah, if you're
It'd be
popular,
great if there was some way where, like, your group or whatever could, the money could needs to be attached to a counseling group.
mm,
So, that will give you a certain amount of money at a certain time, but we need to go through these steps to make sure that you're not going off the rails with it.
yeah, yeah. There's all kinds of things that can be done. I mean, the laws right now, it's like the Wild West out there. It's anything goes, and I'm glad I'm not coaching now because it's it'd be really something to go and you go talk to a high school kid and you try to recruit them, and how much money is somebody else offering them, and can you top that? And it just doesn't seem like a game I'd be interested in playing in right now. But that's the reality. And I think the laws are going to be formed. This is like the early 1990s when the internet came out.
Yeah.
It was the Wild West for a while. Then it became regulated and
Yeah.
so on. And I think that's where NIL is right now. They are shaping some rules and regulations and things like that. But it's a Wild West time right now.
What advice would you give to a young person starting out that's graduated? Um, I believe you should work your passion,
Hmm.
um, not just for money. I believe if you work your passion, money will come. And um, what advice would you give for somebody starting out?
Yeah, it's always, and it doesn't matter whether it's a young 18-year-old athlete or, a 48-year-old leader in a business or somebody getting ready to retire. It's always about ego, and if you're doing something for ego
Ah,
of puffing out your chest and then that's where you get into trouble. And so, I just would encourage an 18-year-old, a 48-year-old, or a retiree to remain curious. And just about the time you think you know it all is usually when the world teaches you a hard lesson. So, just
isn't that
be
the truth?
Yeah, just be aware, and when your ego is getting out there too much, learn to draw it back, be humble, be curious, and surround yourself with good people, smart
That's a
people.
great statement. I don't believe you can just become humble. I believe it's the circumstances in our life that bring us to our knees
Yeah,
that
yeah,
make us humble.
yeah, yeah. They're all suffering.
Yeah,
Suffering is part of life, and we try to, prevent our kids from suffering. We try
yeah.
to. Yeah, and yet it is the suffering that builds the character of who we are. And so there's another paradox is suffering. We want to get rid of it, but yet it is what makes us who we are.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
fascinating.
I wouldn't appreciate hardly anything if I didn't go through suffering.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a whole perspective of, you know, you spend 4 months in the hospital with your wife, and it's like, wow, that's a whole new life that I didn't even expect or see that coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I give you a story of suffering. Sickle cell anemia is, a terrible genetic disorder. And there was a gentleman that had suffered from sickle cell anemia, and he passed it on to his two kids because it is a genetic disorder that can be passed on. And they cured sickle cell anemia. The CRISPR research
Huh.
can now you can actually take out bad genetic uh, the bad genetic code, put in a healthy genetic code, and you can solve these diseases like Huntington's disease and sickle cell anemia.
Wow.
And so this guy had and it's very expensive right now, but they think eventually it'll be available to anyone. So that's a wonderful advance. And this gentleman had to go through thinking about, well, do I want to cure my kids of sickle cell anemia? Because he said it was his suffering that made him who he was that day and as successful in life as he was. And so, he had to really think about that. Now, in the end, he did what probably you and I would do. He could afford it, and he cured his kids of sickle cell anemia as well. But he had to think about it because it was the suffering that made him who he was. And I think that's a good story of, how we all sort of wrestle with suffering, and we try to prevent our kids from suffering
Yeah.
like we suffered. We want them to have a better life than us and not go through the suffering we went through. But yet, it is that suffering that made us who we are. So
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
an interesting.
it's tough to see your
Yeah,
kids suffer. Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah,
that's the give and take is that you want to protect them. At
yeah,
the same time, that protection is not going to allow them to be who they could be.
yeah. Well, Coach Wooden had some good advice. He said, "Never do for your children what they can do for themselves." Never do for your children what they can do for themselves. And I think that was a good hint at, let them go through tough times. They can handle it. Your job as a parent is to just love them. That's it. So, uh, and let them know that, and it's yeah. So
That, as when we were 20-year-olds, we could have never said that statement. Just love,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
taken years of, of change and
yeah,
suffering and victory and brokenness and all of that to
yeah.
be able to see that.
Yeah. Well, it's helpful to have 6 or 7 decades of experience behind you.
That's
Hopefully we learn
crazy, isn't it?
hopefully we learn something.
Well, hopefully we can pick this up in a week or so, and we'll get some comments from people out there.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be
And
great.
look forward to doing this. There's a lot of wisdom.
Well, that's right. And really what I'd like to do right now is pour as much of what we have learned, into that younger generation and uh, and they're fantastic. They're incredible. I look at the kids that, are 25, 26 years old and I see where they are compared to where I was at that age and I'm like, wow, they're amazing.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, so I think we're in good hands. But I'd love to just share the experience, and maybe we can do it through this podcast. That'd be great.
yeah, absolutely. And then we could probably do some shows with live to where we have people calling in. But I know there's from just what we talked about now, a ton of questions that people have, especially about in the workplace, about, you know, equality, as
Yeah,
far as giving a
yeah,
piece to somebody else,
yeah,
um, and giving everyone the benefit of the doubt.
yeah. There's some great mental exercises that we can do to keep ourselves in a healthy place,
Yeah,
and we can also have bad habits, thought habits that get us into an unhealthy place. So
yeah.
be glad to share some of those, with the listeners as well.
You have a website,
Yes, we have a mindsetforsuccess.org,
okay?
O-R-G.
I'll put
Uh,
that on the screen. And Denny Alameda, it's great to have you on today and look forward to having you on again.
all right, Brad, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, you take care.
You too.
Thank you for listening today. Quite a segment. Hope you got as much out of it as I did and that you learned something from adversity, not giving up, that there's always hope no matter what the circumstances. Please subscribe to our channel so you get all the latest updates and you can see all the past great stories of people who have overcome true adversity and hardships in life. I'm Brad Henry. Thank you for tuning in.